So, any questions, comments about the first part of this? So, Charles and I, in 2013, when we started doing this, we initially started taking it out into the community in Austin, primarily the IV drug using community that was at highest risk. And we started educating the community and handing out this medication, and to date there's been over 400 rescues just in Austin. On a statewide level there's been over 1,000 rescues, and not one red nickel has come from an expense of the taxpayers in this state. We've been able to get donations of medication from pharmaceutical companies and from other nonprofit agencies around the United States, like Bernie's Group and other groups from around the United States, to allow us to hand out this medication. But through this TTOR grant, you guys will have the opportunity to get some free medication to leave here with. I believe that every household in the country should have this medication in their medicine cabinet, because you know, you'd rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So,
is there an expiration date on that medicine?
Yeah, Charles will go through all that with you. So at this point, Charles Ray Thibodeau, my right-hand man.
Thank you, Mark. You got that? I think so. Let me see if I can figure that out. Can you hear me?
No. Now? Yes. Okay. I say go up. Okay. Got all these hearing devices. It's like one on top of the other. So somebody raise a hand back if you start having trouble hearing me. So we're going to first talk about, where this stuff's coming in from, right? Mark talked a little bit about it. 80% of it we know is coming in across the Mexican border. So that would make one think right off the top that that's where it's all being manufactured, but that's not the case. Some of this stuff's being manufactured in Southwest and Southeast Asia and South America, but I think Mark touched on the fact that those folks have partnered up with the Mexican cartels because they have a finely sophisticated system on how to get drugs into this country. Okay? So that's where a lot of it's being made, but coming in through Mexico. If you look at these on the screen, I had the opportunity to do street outreach in Austin, Texas in the 90s and early 2000s. Our target population was IV drug users, sex industry workers, folks that were actively using on the streets. What we saw on the streets of Austin back then was mostly black tar, stuff you see on top, okay? The black tar heroin. Every now and then we'd see some brown powder. Folks would take and turn the tar into brown powder, but it was pretty rare to even hear about or see white dope here in Texas back then. It was called China white. Everyone knew that most of it was around on the East Coast, but not much here down south, and that's not the case today. Today we have the new Mexican white is what it's called. And it's much, much, much more potent than the old China white stuff that was around back in the 90s and the 2000s. So this is just as an illustration. It's not exact. But think about this, what we're looking at up here, folks. So for me to get to a euphoria of, say, to get to a peak of this high, I'd have to do that much heroin versus that much fentanyl versus that much carfentanil. And Mark's already alluded to the fact that fentanyl, the one in the middle, is 100 times more potent than morphine. It's about 50 to 60 times more potent than heroin. The carfentanil, which is an elephant tranquilizer, to the right, is 100 times more potent than fentanyl. Okay? Was it Atlanta, Georgia? I think the HIDTA, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Agency, that tracks drugs coming into this country, seized 6 kilos of carfentanil coming into this country. We were getting calls sometimes from folks that work with DEA, tracking a lot of these drugs. They watch them come in, they follow them, they stop them either in Carolina, Georgia, wherever. Guess where they're coming in? Texas. They came in through Laredo, Texas. For some reason, the cartels get more money the further up the drugs go. So I think that's a big part of why a lot of it's going further up east. Okay, so fentanyl-related deaths up 540%. It's crazy. We talked to a gentleman on the East Coast and talking about they're seeing a lot, in some places up there, they're seeing, hardly not seeing heroin, just seeing fentanyl. Okay? So who are the highest risk folks for overdose? Okay? And this kind of may come as a surprise to some of you. I was talking to a lady at break. Mark talked a little bit about the scenario, him being homeless, having to use behind the dumpster and stuff, putting him at a higher risk. So folks in those types of situations are definitely going to be at increased risk for overdose, for infections and those types of things. Anyone that's been abstinent from drugs and alcohol for a period of time, someone with a substance use disorder, okay, which means sober housing, folks that are in drug treatment, folks who have just not used for a while, that's had drug issues in the past, those are folks at highest risk. This even came as a surprise to me. August 31st is International Overdose Awareness Day. So every year we have a little event on the south steps of the Capitol in Austin. Just kind of recognize folks who have lost loved ones to this epidemic and just to try to get the word out. A mother came one year to testify, and this kind of hit home with me. She talked about her and her husband had a daughter that had a substance use disorder. They didn't know it for a while, then it became evident to them, and that they weren't sleeping at night, not knowing where she was, thinking any minute somebody can come knock on the door and say, your daughter's passed away or whatever. And she said, life is really tough. And then the daughter comes home one day and says, I've had enough. I'm going to treatment. She said the daughter goes in treatment, and the mom and the husband had never slept so well, was at peace with themselves, with life in general. The daughter gets out of drug treatment, goes into a sober house, women's sober house. They get to knock on the door. Daughter overdosed and died in the sober house. And it's like, wow. Those are folks at highest risk for overdose. When we talk to folks, is there anybody here that works in drug treatment? Yeah? What's the average of how many people leave your drug treatment program that are going to stay clean and sober? Out of 10?
Out of 10?
2? That's a huge success rate.
Yeah.
2 out of 10? We're seeing sometimes in some place 1 or less than 1 out of 10. So what that means is everybody coming through drug treatment, out of the folks coming through drug treatment, 8 of those 10 are going to go back out and use. And guess what? And I'm not saying your drug treatment program, I'm not talking about it. We're still doing treatment the way we were doing treatment 20 years ago. We're not talking to the patients about it. They're at the highest risk for overdose. I'm a licensed chemical dependency counselor. When I went through training, we never had any kind of training on how to talk to clients about using drugs safe. We only were trained to not tell them don't use. Okay? And then show them how to do that. Again, success rate hasn't been real great. 2017, in the trainings that the potential counselors, licensed counselors are coming up, they're still not talking to them about it. It's crazy, folks. We have to get outside of the box. It's not something comfortable to talk about, but we have to step out of our comfort level and talk to folks about this. Mark talked about educating people. Don't use alone. You can't rescue yourself. Another thing we're talking to people about is if you're working with people that use, tell folks to stagger their use. Someone asked me, what the heck does that mean? An example. 2 guys leaving sober house. It's a true story. They decide to use together. They call a friend up on the phone and said, hey, we have this stuff called fentanyl. We hear it's really potent. Why don't you come over? He comes over. By the time he gets there, they're both dead, face down on the table. They snorted it at the same time, and both overdosed, died. So when we're talking to drug users, we talk to them about staggering your use. Mark and I, hypothetical, he gave the scenario a while ago, flip a coin or whatever. You go first or I go first, the other person wait 15 minutes. And probably a good idea to have this medication available and know how to do rescue breathing. So those are all kind of things that we need to get out of our comfort level and talk to people about. Okay? So people entering, exiting treatment at a higher risk, COPD. You know, one of the things we want to think, sometimes alcohol and opiates, 1 and 1 is 2. 1 and 1 is not 2. It's more like 1 and 1 is 10 or 1 and 1 is 20, because it increases the effect of the other. So mixing drugs is not a good one. People living with HIV, 74% higher potential for overdose. Again, hepatitis C running rapid, shooting through the roof because of this epidemic. Go ahead. Tolerance. So what happens when, I'll use myself as an example. I get in a car wreck, I go to the doctor, he gives me a prescription for hydrocodone, Narcos, Vicodin, whatever you want to call it. I've had substance use disorder issues in the past. I start taking the medicine that's prescribed, and then all of a sudden I start taking it a little more than prescribed. Okay? So I start off taking one every 4 hours, and I get a certain feeling. Well, in 2 or 3 months, to be able to get that same effect, I don't take one, I have to take 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. So what happens, what that means is I build a tolerance. I have to use more of the drug to reach the same effect. Okay? That tolerance level, when I stop using for whatever reason, whether it's voluntary, going into drug treatment, or involuntary, going to jail, prison, or whatever, my tolerance level goes back down. Okay? Some people don't know that. So, the example is I start using, my tolerance level goes up to where I'm taking 20 pills a day, or 30 pills a day, and then I go into rehab. My tolerance level is going to go back down. When I come out of rehab or come out of jail or wherever, or just go back to using again, I may think, well, I was using 30 a day, 5 at a time. I go back to taking 5 at a time and overdose, because the tolerance level changes. Okay? Mixing drugs, alcohol and the opiates and benzodiazepines, perfect ingredient for overdose. Okay? Thank you. And Mark alluded to doctors are not talking about it. You know, an example, someone with COPD drinks a glass of wine at night before she goes to bed. Then on benzodiazepines or sleep medications, whatever you want to call it, for insomnia. Goes to the doctor writes a prescription for hydrocodone. No education. Elderly, COPD, may have asthma, alcohol, benzos, and opiates. So we're hoping that that Senate bill, House Bill 584 that Mark talked about, is going to help with that, to where if a doctor's going to write a prescription for opiate, they have to write a prescription for Narcan, and at least get the conversation started about why I'm giving you this prescription for Narcan, even though we have an open prescription. So using alone, we've already touched on that. The variation in the street drugs. This is another one. A mom came to me, I think we were in Bryan College Station, said, maybe I'm too naive, but why would anybody in their right mind go buy street medications if we know this stuff is out there? And I gave a scenario of a true story of what happens, right? So somebody's using regular, they have substance use disorder, they're addicted, they're going to buy this stuff from the same guy they've been buying from or scoring from or however you want to call it for years. So they know each other. I've been buying from the same guy, our kids play football together, blah, blah. So I go to this connection on Tuesday and I get a little bag about this big, got some white powder in it, and I go home and I use it, and it works. I get high. I go back to the same guy on Thursday. I get something that looks exactly like the stuff I got on Tuesday, and I do it, and I overdose and die. How could he do that to me, right? I mean, we have an example that just happened in Abilene. 4 overdoses in 45 minutes. 3 of them died. Okay? What's happening is even the dealers or connections, when they're getting this stuff, they're not aware that there's fentanyl in the drug. It looks exactly the same. Okay? The cartels are pressing pills, meaning I have a narco in this hand, or hydrocodone, narco, Vicodin, whatever you want to call it, and I have one over here in this hand that looks exactly like this one, but the pharmaceutical narco has hydrocodone. This one has fentanyl and benzodiazepine. Okay? A lady at our presentation yesterday here in El Paso comes to me and said, I have a question. I have a friend that is a cocaine user. Been using cocaine for a long time. Okay? And lately, I've noticed when she uses cocaine, which usually gets her happy and hyped up and real active, that she's over there nodding, like on opiates. And I said, probably because she is. It's showing up in fentanyl, showing up in cocaine, it's showing up in methamphetamine, it's showing up in these pressed pills. So it's unpredictable. Many times the connection finds out their fentanyl's in there, and someone knocks on the door and says 3 of your customers died in the last hour. Next one. So one of the things, you know, people think overdose, and you hear these stories. Oh, they found someone dead from overdose, they had the needle stuck in their arm. We're seeing some of that with some of the analogs of fentanyl, but that's not the majority of the cases. Most overdoses occur over a period of time, over 1 to 2 to 3 hours. Okay? So a little over 10% of the folks with the fentanyl that die immediately. Like I talked about those 2 guys that snorted, they probably went out pretty quick. It's a high analog of fentanyl. So what that means for us, folks, is we have time to intervene. We have time to intervene. I want to kind of back up just a little bit on the using alone story. This is a true story that happened. My son, I have a son that's 25, 26. How old is Brandon? Anyway, I'm in recovery from addiction. And I did, I think, no different than anybody else. I put my folks through just a disaster. I remember my mom saying to me once, and I know she said this out of frustration and hurt and fear, well, I hope when you grow up you have one just like you, so you know what it feels like. And one of the things I've told my son is, I hope you don't have one that goes out in active addiction. Because I can't think of anything worse as a parent to have to go through. But anyway, my son is 25, has never seen me use. He's never seen his stepmom use. And so we thought, this guy's not going to use drugs, right? He's never seen it around the house. We've never used. We don't talk about it. The apple don't fall far from the tree, folks. he started using it at a young age and it escalated really fast. So I got a really good feeling on what my mom was talking about. In early recovery, one of his friends was at a party. She relapsed. And I call them kids, right? They were late teens, early 20s. I know they're young adults, but to me at my age, they're still kids. I'm going to call her Jill for confidentiality reasons. So they're at the party, and Jill's over here with a bottle of whiskey, and she's kind of just, you know, having a lot of fun, right? They're taking whatever else, no one knew. And what do friends do? Let's get Jill and take her, pick her up, put her in the back bedroom, let her sleep it off, right? That's what friends do. Party was over 5 hours later, and Jill was dead. Now, if those young adults would have had the information that we're talking about today, they wouldn't have picked Jill up and put her in the back room, right? But we're not talking about it. We need to start talking to folks about this stuff, okay? Having someone, the last thing you want to do in this day and age, what we're seeing with the drugs that are appearing, is to put someone somewhere by themselves. Okay? Last thing. Okay? Okay. So it happens over 1 to 3 hours. Opioids repress the urge to breathe. Okay? So you have all these brain receptors in the brain. Tells the body, you know, the brain receptors do a lot of different things. Tell the body to feel pleasure, tell them to do this, but the opioid receptor tells the body to be able to breathe. You put opiates in the body, and it says slow down breathing, slow down, stop if you use too much. Okay? So rarely immediate. I know there was a couple in here said they had seen overdose. So the signs of an overdose, how to recognize. Okay? Heavy, uncontrollable nodding. Okay? You still arouse them. A really loud snoring sound. We call it the death gurgle. Okay? Another true story in Austin. Guy, man or woman, in drug treatment. They decide to leave to go try to get high one more time. Go to a motel. They go get drugs. They come back, they use, and she leaves because she got high with him. She left. The maids found him dead the next day. When the police questioned her, why did you leave him? She said, because he was really comfortable when I left. He was snoring real loud. He wasn't snoring, folks. He was trying to get air. Okay? So loud snoring, loud breathing, trying to get air sound. Non-responsive, okay, shallow breathing, turning grayish, bluish color. Think about it. They're not getting oxygen, okay? The surefire way to know if someone's in overdose, you can do a sternal rub, and you can try it on yourself. You can put your hands like this, knuckles, up and down the chest bone, really hard, that hurts. If they're just really high, they're going to respond to that. If they're in overdose, they're not going to respond. You can even use the top lip. If they don't respond to that, they're in overdose. Okay? If they're just high, they're going to respond. So, most overdoses are witnessed, like Mark said. Most of the rescues are happening from family members and peers, folks that we use with, okay? What's one of the reasons you think someone may not want to call 911? Get in trouble? I love my brother to death, right? Usually who shows up on the scene first, I know in Austin, when you call 911, is the police. If I'm on parole, or I'm on probation, and I call 911 and the police come, there's a chance I might go back to prison, right? Back to jail. So again, it's an education piece. You really want to stay with the person that had the negative consequences as long as you can. You really want to get 911 there because there can be things going on with the person other than the overdose. Okay? There's a lot of myths out there. People talk about shooting people up with salt water or milk, or putting ice down on their genitals. It's like all they're going to have is a cold crotch, folks. That doesn't work for overdose. It's a myth. What happens with that, we're telling people, is you're really wasting valuable time when you try all those things. Okay? Those things just simply do not work. Okay? Another thing you hear a lot in the drug using community is like, oh man, somebody overdosed and everybody ran off and left them. That's usually not the case. I'm not going to say it's never happened. That's not the majority of the cases. Folks usually look out for one another. Okay? So about 2% of heroin users die each year from the overdose. Okay? Over half have experienced one non-fatal overdose. Here's another statistic that may surprise you. If someone has overdosed previously, they're more at risk for overdosing again and dying from the next overdose. Okay? Overdose does something physical to someone. 80% of people who have overdosed have observed an overdose. Okay? So, you know, one of the things too, and even in dealing with the lawmakers, is folks will come up to us and say things like, well, if you give this medication, won't it just make someone go out and think, well, I'll just use all I want today, right? They have medication, I can't die from it. Folks, I can't think of a more unpleasant situation than overdose. Okay? It's about the most unpleasant situation a person can be in. We haven't met anybody that says, there's Narcan available now, I think I'm going to try and go overdose today. It's just not. It's not a reality. It's not happening. It's pretty horrible. It's really horrible. Okay? The person goes from being as euphoric as they can to being in total withdrawal. Okay? Not a fun feeling. Okay? So, you come to this person, you see that they're turning bluish gray colored, you done a sternal rub, you determine they're in overdose. What do you want to do next? You know, you can pinch them on the ear, you can shout their name, yell their name. Don't hit them. Don't do the other thing. Shoot them up with milk and salt water. Then you want to start rescue breathing. You call 911. So help's on the way. You want to get oxygen in. Okay? So you want to start rescue breathing, and then you administer naloxone, and then you go back to rescue breathing. Okay? What's important is rescue breathing alone can keep the person alive until medical help gets there. One of the things we want to be aware of, that we don't get the word out there, that people get in the mindset thinking, if I don't have Narcan and they overdose, there's nothing I can do. That's not true. Rescue breathing alone can keep the person alive. Yes, sir?
How many minutes without air in the brain?
How many minutes without air in the brain? I'm not sure exactly what it is. There's certain points in there where it starts the minimal brain damage, and then the longer you go with that oxygen. So we're not sure about that. The thing is that when you recognize someone's in this overdose, you want to start the rescue breathing as fast as you can. Okay. So back up one, please. So what you want to do is you want to get the person on their back. Okay. Here's a mannequin, and you want to start rescue breathing. You want to tilt the head back, and by doing that, you put one hand on the forehead, one hand under the chin, and gently tilt the head back. You want to make sure that the mouth is staying open and the airway is clear. Because what can happen sometimes is someone can have food in their mouth when they overdose, so it'll be blocking the airway. Or sometimes users, if they're injectors, may have a syringe, they may take the cap off with their mouth before they inject when they overdose. So you want to make sure that airway is clear. Okay? And then you want to start the rescue breathing. Rescue breathing is not hard to do, but it's hard to keep up. So if you have someone with you, trade off. Okay? So you got them on their back, you call 911. And these kits we've given you guys today, it has a mask, and it's pretty foolproof for us, people like us Cajuns, right? It's got a picture of their face on here, so you can't get it on there wrong. And it'll rescue breathing will work even if you don't have the mask, all right? What you want to do, you got the head tilted back, you want to pinch the nose, and you want to put your mouth over their mouth, making sure you have a full seal, cover their mouth fully with a good seal. You want to give 2 really hard, long breaths, and then a breath every 5 seconds. Okay? So you got the nose pinch, you one every 5 seconds. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000. Breathe. You can watch and see if the chest is rising, if the chest needs to be rising, or you can put your goodie there to see if you feel air, okay, to make sure that the airway is open, and you keep doing the rescue breathing. Okay, then you give the Narcan, back to rescue breathing. Okay, really important. A lot of people will ask us, or get it mixed up CPR. You don't have to do CPR and get on and do chest compression. They need oxygen. Next slide, please. The cure for opioid overdose, oxygen. Get oxygen. Okay? If you have to leave the person for any reason, you have them on their back, right? If you leave the person on their back, they could vomit, choke on the vomit, and die from that. So if you have to leave them for any reason, put them in a recovery position. Turn them on their side. I'm going to put one arm over, one leg over like you see in the picture, face pointing downward in case they vomit. Okay? Next slide. Narcan. Naloxone. I got quite a few grandkids. I have one granddaughter. Her name is Penelope. So it's no secret that Penelope gets what Penelope wants, right? I always tell Penelope she's my favorite granddaughter. And she lets everybody know that, right? I'm Papa's favorite granddaughter. He kind of looked at me crazy and I go, she's the only one. I'm not picking favorites. I tend to leave stuff scattered around my house. My wife would confirm that real quick. If Penelope gets a hold of this medication and ingests it, guess what's going to happen? Nothing. Zero. She's 5 years old. It'd be like her taking a drink out of my water bottle. This medication can do no harm whatsoever. There's no liabilities. Anyone can possess it. Anyone can administer it. Anyone can purchase it. Someone asked about expiration date. Before I forget, FDA requires expiration dates on all medications, right? True story. I had a headache one day. I'm like, I got a headache. So I mosey on over to the medicine cabinet. I grab a bottle, take a couple of Tylenol out, put in. About 45 minutes later, my wife's standing there with the bottle and she goes, how's your headache? I said, it's gone. She said, this expired 8 years ago. I'm like, who cares, right? The headache's gone. It worked. This medication that's been expired 10 years has reversed an overdose. If you get medication and it expires and you don't want it, don't throw it away. We'll come get it. Because it still can work. Okay? So it's either injectable or intranasal. Reverses opioid overdose. Pushes most of the other opioids off the receptor. It's kind of like getting the wrong key stuck in a lock. Next slide, please. It reverses the effects of the sedation, the respiratory depression. It'll cause sudden withdrawal. We kind of talked about that. No psychiatric effect. EMS has been using this stuff since the 60s. It's not going to hurt if there's not an opiate present. You know, another true story, lady asked if I come out of my office, someone's laying on the ground, how do I know they used opiates, right? Doesn't matter. You're not going to hurt them by giving us medication. Okay? The little green squigglies are the brain receptors. The little circle, pink circles are the opiates that set exactly on the receptor. That cauliflower-looking thing is naloxone. It comes in here, it gets between the receptor and the opioid, and it does this. Bam! Kicks the opioid off the receptor. Tells the body you can breathe. Takes 3 to 5 minutes before it takes effect. Think about being leaning over someone 3 or 5 minutes. The young lady you saw on the film at the beginning, they gave her 5 shots. Chances are she didn't need 5 shots. It would seem like a long time to wait 3 minutes. You're not going to hurt someone by giving them too much of this stuff. It'll precipitate withdrawal a little harder, right? Throw them in withdrawal, but they'll be alive. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for showing all of the overdoses on the different drugs, but what about meth? How does that work? Or am I getting ahead of myself and you just haven't presented it?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other topic. The meth. And we can talk to you after this if you want.
Okay, but would the Narcan...
Narcan only works for opiates.
Oh, so it would not work for meth.
Don't work for meth, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, benzodiazepines, only opiates.
Got it. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much for that.
Good question. Next slide. So we're going to go through the 4 different forms of the Narcan, and I'll talk to you about the pricing and how you can get it and how you use it and all that stuff. The one you see on the slide here is from Mountainside Medical. At birth, kind of looks like this. You get an empty capsule, and then a glass vial that has medication in it. Narcan, 2 cc's of medication. What comes separate is an atomizer. Looks like a mushroom here. This is sold separate. The atomizer screws onto the plastic container like this, and then the glass vial with the medication goes into the bottom and it screws in as well. Put half in one nostril and half in the other nostril. It gets absorbed through the mucous membrane. The person does not have to be breathing. They're in overdose. Okay? It will actually work without the atomizer. It's a little more effective with the atomizer because the atomizer creates a mist. Right? Walgreens has informed us that if you purchase this type of Narcan, they will give you the atomizer. Okay? If you walk into a drugstore to pay cash, we always recommend that the person has a minimum of 2 doses. Okay? At a very minimum. A couple of doses of this is probably about 55, 60 bucks. Atomizer, $1 or $1.50, something like that. Anywhere from 50 cents up to $1.50. Again, Walgreens will give it away. Mountainside Medical is the manufacturer. Next slide. This one's the newest one on the market. From ADAPT Pharmaceutical. ADAPT. And it looks just like what you're seeing on the screen. You take your thumb, put it on the middle part, put it in one nostril, and shove all the medication up one nostril. It's nasal as well. It's got 4 cc's, 4 milligrams of medication. Okay? Which we were happy about when we seen some of the strains of fentanyl hitting the street. Okay? ADAPT Pharmaceutical. You walk into a drugstore, purchase this, cash, a couple of doses, 150 bucks. If you're an agency and you want to purchase this in bulk, the representative will give it to you for half that price, or sell it to you for half that price, should I say. Okay? Next slide. I'm going to call this one the Cadillac. When I talk about pricing, you'll know why. I know we're in El Paso, we probably don't have a lot of LSU fans, but this is the LSU Tigers color. Kaleo, K-A-L-E-O is the name of the drug manufacturer. The Evzio model. So it comes in a box that looks like this. The medication is a bright, pretty color, purple and gold. So every box has 2 medications in it. and it also has a trainer. It's black and white, and it says here on top, trainer. And this one talks to you. So it's really cute. Everybody wants it, right? Because it talks. So I'm going to demonstrate this. And it talks about when I do the demonstration to place it on the outer thigh. And I'm going to pretend like this is my outer thigh so you guys can hear it. So here we go.
This trainer contains no needle or drain. To inject, place black ends against outer thigh. Then press firmly and hold in place for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Lifesaver.
Injection complete.
Cute, huh?
This trainer.
I say it can do no harm when your granddaughter walks around and pulls that out about 30, 40 times in an hour. It will harm you. It's like, put it up! Kaleo. The price really fluctuates on these. Pay up to $4,000. Now, Mark talked about we having millions of dollars of medication donated to us, hundreds of overdoses been reversed in the state of Texas. A lot of the reason for that is Kaleo donating medication to us. Why do they charge that much? Because they can, right? No regulation on drug companies. And they're very generous. In fact, if you go to Kaleo Cares, one word, and let them know you have an opiate user in your life, you can't afford it, they'll send you a box. Okay? So Kaleo. Next slide. This is the one EMS has been using, folks, since the 60s. Hospira, Hospira. Anybody want this slide? We have business cards on the back. Email us, we'll get the slides to you. Comes in a bottle like you see on your screen. Got 1 cc of medication already measured out. They even have 10 cc bottles that have the potential to save 10 lives. This is injectable. Okay. Instructions is to use a 3 cc syringe. I call it the horse syringe. I got this one at Callahan's Feed Store in Austin. You can buy them online. Drugstores sell them. But I'm sure there's feed stores around here if you can't find it. I've worked with opiate users for a really long time. I've never ever met an opiate user to use a needle this big. Ever. We get a lot of pushback on this because the needle's involved. This medication on top, take the little orange cap off to protect her. There's a gray skin. Take the needle, go into the skin, draw up the whole 1 cc of medication. I'm going to pretend like I do because we'll do another presentation. And then you want to hit them in the muscle. The arm, the thigh, or the booty. Okay? Somebody said, booty's a muscle? I said, well, when, after my age, it's not anymore, but at some point it is, right? We recommend you don't try to put the cap back on because you may do a needle stick. If you're going to put it back on, lay the cap down and then kind of go into it like this with the needle. Okay? When working with IV drug users, many times IV drug users will use a much smaller needle called a U100 insulin syringe. It's got a much shorter needle, probably not effective going into the muscle. They can do the 1 cc of medication and shoot it in the tongue and it'll work. Okay, they'll be alive. If you walk into a drugstore and get a couple of doses of this Hospira, probably about $50. Okay, I think I paid 35 cents for the needle at the feed store. Next slide. So, even though we get a lot of pushback from the Hospira, check out on the effectiveness of the cost. 72 doses you can get for what you pay for a couple of doses of the ADAP pharmaceutical. Okay? Works just as well, folks. We need to get past some of those fears we have of the needle. You know, I can't help but and Mark touched on this pretty regular at the beginning. Next slide, please. Some of the stigma that goes with drug use. I really believe this, that if this was an epidemic that was killing diabetics which requires a needle for insulin, I don't think we'd get as much pushback about having needles available to do this work. Or, you know, folks with heart condition, all that stuff. But anyway, that's fine. So it's going to cause severe withdrawal. You know, I want to think if I save someone's life with this stuff, they're going to want to wake up and hug me and kiss me, right? That's probably not going to be the case. They're going from overdose to severe withdrawal. One of the things they may want to do again is put opiates back in their body so they can start feeling high again and not feeling sick. Don't let them use. Narcan's very short acting, 30 to 90 minutes. Mark talks about the long acting opioid. So what's going to happen is the opioids are going to come and start setting back on the brain receptor, and the Narcan's going to start lifting off. So you can tell a person you're going to start feeling the opioid effect again in about 30 minutes. So don't use. Okay? Pretty rare, but you may need more than one shot if you wait to 3 minutes. Like I said, you're not going to hurt folks from giving them too much. Next slide, please. Everybody needs a shirt like this, right? Next slide. Fentanyl strips. And we have a few here for you guys. That's what the package looks like. Inside they have a little strip, looks like this. It's actually a drug screen strip, right? It's got a dark blue end. That's where you should hold it. And then on the other end, it's got a little indicator line about this far up that suggests you don't submerge it any past that line, right? So you put it into the drug, liquid, and leave it for at least 10 seconds. You take it out, you lay it flat on the table for 5 minutes. If you go like 10 minutes, then it's no longer valid. Okay? If it comes back with one line, that means there's fentanyl in the drug. 2 lines means there's no fentanyl. Okay? So if you're interested in getting some of these, email us, we'll send you the link. Okay? But you know, back in the AIDS epidemic, we used to tell folks to do universal precaution. It's like, what does that mean? It's like, treat everyone like they're infected. In other words, you protect yourself. We're doing the same thing with this epidemic. Telling folks, treat every drug that you have like it might have fentanyl in it. Okay? But be safe. Have Narcan available at all times. This is really cool because it makes everybody turn their head. Scare me, stimulate, call 911, airway. It's just kind of a real brief high points of what we talked about today on how to do a rescue. On the bottom left-hand screen, which would be the top left-hand part of it, if we turn it up right, place for resources, you know, where your methadone clinics may be, where your 12-step meetings, your nearest pastor, or whatever support systems that folks may need. Okay? If you're interested in this, we send you the PowerPoint. Next slide. So there's our contact information. It's also going to be on our business cards. Next slide. This is a report. It doesn't ask for name or anything. NaloxonSaved.us. We're really trying to get folks to capture rescues happening. There have been rescues happening in El Paso. So just so we have accurate data, we can start giving to the feds and the lawmakers and all this stuff to keep addressing this epidemic in a proper manner. Next slide. You may want to take a picture of this, even if you don't want the whole PowerPoint. Recovery ATX, you'll find our schedule, training schedule. GetNaloxonNow.org. You can go to that site, you take a little test, do a little education. Everybody would pass it with flying colors after today. And they spit out a certificate. So it's a good place if you want to give somebody education, talk to them about it, have them watch that. Prescribe to Prevent. If you are a medical professional and you go to this site, you can get a free CEUs. It's also got some real good educational videos. Operation Naloxone, same thing, School of Pharmacy at UT has a good educational video on there, and pharmacists and doctors can get CEUs. Okay, and then NaloxonSave.us, next slide, is the one to track the overdose reversals. Any questions on the overdose reversal piece? Okay, next slide. I'm going to talk about Hep C. It's probably take less than 5 minutes. If you have people in your life or at your agency, the people you work with at risk for Hep C, we have a doctor in Austin, Dr. Alam, A-L-A-M. He's on a mission to eradicate Hep C in Texas. He's doing a pretty good job of it. Hepatitis C treatment costs about $100,000. Okay? This doctor will treat persons with or without insurance. Worst case scenario, the client may have to come out of pocket $550 for labs and doctor visits. That's not a bad deal for $100,000 treatment. Okay? They do all the work, folks. It takes about 5 minutes to enter someone in the system. Once you hit refer, linkage to care team calls them, sets them up with medication, sets them up with the doctor, sets them up with labs, does all the work. No cost to you. Okay, next slide, please. This will be the first screen you'll see. There's actually 3 slides, pages that you have to fill out. And most of the time it's 1 page if somebody doesn't have insurance. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh. Yeah, this one right here is going to be the first data entry you do on the person. So it just asks for name, date of birth, email, city. On the right side, down towards the bottom, there's a place for notes. You want to put as much information in there as you can about how to contact the person. Dr. Alam's target is to get folks with substance use disorder. So he's testing people in treatment. He's testing people in halfway houses. Testing people in sober houses. Okay? And getting tested, treated, and cured. About a 98 to 99% success rate. You know, the old medication, Hep C treatment, interferon, ribavirin, has a pretty horrible side effect. This has none or minimal side effects. These Harvoni or Hepclusa. Okay? So you enter all this information on the person on the first page, and then you put create client. It takes you to the next page. It has insurance information. If they don't have insurance, put skip insurance, there's a little tab on the bottom. Then it takes you to the third page. It says upload files. I've entered a lot of people in there. I've never had anybody hand any files to upload. What that means is, like, if you've been tested for Hep C or treated before and you have files you want the doctor to know about, you can upload them to the system. You hit refer and the screen pops up saying referral successful. Your job's done. Linkage to care team does all the work. That's it. If you're interested in getting that at your agency, or you know someone that wants to be tested, you can go in, create an account, test them, or we can have someone come out and show you how to set it up for your agency, where you can test everybody coming through your door if they choose to be tested. Or if you don't want to do any of that stuff, you can call Mark, or I will enter them over the phone. Questions? Picture. Mark says that the state don't believe we're going around doing these presentations, so we got to have a picture to show proof. No, we try to get a picture with everywhere we go to train people. If you guys are willing to take a picture, do we have any photographers in the house? Huh? We want you in the picture.
You guys mind taking a picture? If we all stand up and have somebody stand up here and take a picture, we would greatly appreciate it. Any questions? Comments? We have medication for you guys.
We have the intramuscular and the intranasal, the Adapt and the Hospira up here. So we really don't want to take it back to Austin if we don't have to. Come on, Murray, we want you in on the picture.
Or just can't get in the front, and it'll be a glare.
No questions, folks? We got the medication up here. Come and get it. Come up with questions. If you have questions, we'll be happy to answer.